Okay, so echoism versus narcissism. Narcissism is something that's becoming more and more commonly known about. At least the phrase is being used a lot more. But probably very few have heard of the term echoism, which is placed on the other end of the spectrum. So often we focus on the extreme or the narcissistic end of the spectrum. And maybe a lot of people like myself have then thought, okay, well, anyone who's not a narcissist, are they just non-narcissistic? But there's another extreme on the other side of like a more stable, average place in the middle, where you can also have very intense behaviors, but where it's more so turned inwards usually. So echoism can be a sort of mirroring in a way of narcissistic behavior, but in an inwards way where it hurts you. So like the opposite in a way. So for echoists, you might also find yourself mirroring people. So which is a very narcissistic trait, to analyze the person in front of you and then mirror their behaviors to try to get closer to them to get what you want. Which is something for myself I've thought often, like I know I've grown up with narcissistic abuse. It's been a part of my life for most of my life in different ways. But then I would find these little traits where I would have a different version of a narcissistic trait, for example, mirroring. And I couldn't figure it out because I always knew I don't do this to try to take from anyone. I do it to try to be there for them or to understand them better. But it's the same act in a way of like trying to gain a close connection, which can also in some instances be cause problems, because you might get too close too soon with some people just because you want to understand them, you want to help them, which is a very egoist thing, is that you want to always know the narcissist around you, the people around you, so you can help them so they might not hurt you. Because there's a sense which I know you'll find familiar if you have had similar experiences, where there's this constant search for, if I can just help them heal, I know they will stop hurting me and hurting other people. It's not just a relational thing, it's also a moral thing. You feel like you have an obligation to help these people heal, so that their so that pain in our collective will be minimized as much as possible. Which is not to say that everyone else don't go out and hurt people too, but being close to people who exhibit narcissistic behavior and traits, you quickly see that there's a very steep scale to how most people will hurt each other inadvertently or by mistake or by misunderstandings or having a bad day or week or month or year even. But it's usually somewhat, it might be a little bit out of some boundaries, but it'll usually go back within the boundaries, or it will be a certain form of like mix of a lot of bad shit happening at once. Like maybe something really bad happened to you while you didn't sleep well, and someone pushed the exact problem that, or like trigger that is very vulnerable to you, and maybe you overreacted a little bit. Like that's within the norm of most people. But then, like I said, for echoists, you'll usually quickly meet in your life that there is a spectrum and there's a scale that goes up to pretty extreme lengths of people who are capable of like destroying other people. Not just hurting them a little bit, not just, but destroying them. And without, like just as their normal behavior, like usually without even any sort of reason. Not that there will ever be a valid reason, but at least what I've found is that with a narcissist, they might try to destroy your life and hurt you more for years to come if you meet them and they want to go out on a date with you and you respectfully decline, you're not interested. Like, that might cause a more extreme reaction that can last years from them than, say, a partner you've been with for years, and maybe you have a really tough breakup and they are really hurt. Maybe you're both really hurt. So I think that's something that's not talked about a lot, is also a scale of extremity in actions as a signifier for narcissism. Is that a narcissist will take very, very, very little to push their buttons, to piss them off. It can just be a look. It can just be being in the room. It can just having eye contact and they feel like maybe you're seeing their true nature. And that can set off a chain of events that last years, and they will do whatever they can to destroy you and turn other people against you, maybe hurt your reputation, maybe take whatever they can from you. If they can't, they might start to copy some of your personality traits, steal your work, try to take friends, relationships from you. Whatever they can take, just because you might have been in the room and had a different energy that they might not be able to match, something they would love to be known for, and maybe you just exude it naturally, which is what I usually say. Like, sometimes the worst thing you can do to people is not doing anything wrong. Like, sometimes the worst thing you can do to people, because often people will see, like, what did I do wrong? Like, I bet I must have done something wrong to piss them off. I must have caused this myself. But sometimes the worst abuse, the worst narcissistic abuse will happen to people who have been the most understanding and patient and empathetic and caring. And just by that nature, you're exhibiting the biggest threat to a narcissist, because that's everything they want to be viewed as, but they know they can't be that naturally. So they have to build up this huge character, fool all these people, build up this mountain and this mask and all these costumes and layers of identity that they're faking on the outside, just to mask what's actually underneath. And you just being those things naturally will be the most infuriating thing to someone with narcissistic tendencies. So I wanted to say that just to validate whoever has been in that space as well, that a lot of us have, where you turn inwards, you blame everything on yourself. Like, I must have done all these things. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have tried to help them, because that's like all of those things. Listen, I see you and I know that it came from a good place, and you were trying to genuinely help someone that you saw might be struggling. So kudos to you for seeing that even in people who show abusive behavior, that you still see the hurt child underneath, that you still see a human worth saving in there, that you still see a way to create healing and better relationships and a better future for everyone, and minimize the pain by going to the source of, or a very high concentration of pain that could be inflicted on other people if it's not treated. So give yourself some credit for that. It's okay. It won't turn you into a narcissist to validate yourself for what you've been through and what you continue to show up with and try to bring to other people. It doesn't make you a narcissist. I know that's another thing, that if you're growing up as an echoist, where you're, which can turn into a opposite version of the same that we often see with narcissists, like a non-self, that you sometimes struggle to find your identity. Whereas with narcissists, they'll then steal identity from other people. They will do whatever they can to create a fake identity. For echoists, it's usually the opposite, that you tend to feel like you disappear. And you usually want to disappear. So where narcissists will want to be more seen and create more attention and more of an outside character, whether it's true or not, which is usually not, echoists tend to, even though they have a lot to offer, shy away a little bit from being the center of attention, from having any kind of attention on them. But I'm here to say you have so many valuable gifts to share, and you can really, really help other people, and it won't make you narcissist, because the magnet will pull you that way. Like, that's your natural magnet. For a narcissist to heal, they need to be pulled away from their magnet, which is to take from other people, exploit, manipulate, lie, steal, hurt, abuse, do all those things to take from other people, to create a self that's not there. That's their magnet always pulling them back into that space, so they have to go in another direction. Let's say they're over here, so that magnet is pulling them this way, and they're trying to go towards the center of more balance. And for an echoist, your magnet is over here, so it's pulling you towards, I shouldn't seek any form of attention, I should just be alone, I should just mirror other people, help them, be kind of, in Danish we have this saying, like an excuse for yourself, that you're always like, you almost show up in every situation apologizing, because just to be safe, you'll always choose to be last. You'll always, and there can be good sides to that. It can be very empathetic, very caring, but it can also be detrimental, and it can also actually, and that's another important part, it can keep narcissistic people in their narcissistic behavior, because you're actually the perfect counterbalance to that. So you both need each other in a way, which can sound, and hear me out, I don't mean that in a way where any of that abuse should happen, and I've been there myself to the extremes of this. So I'm not in the camp that's saying it was good it happened because it taught you all this. No, your healing is what you did in spite of what happened to you. You chose to go through hell and resurrect yourself and find a way to build yourself back up again and again, and also on top of that, try to help other people. So I'm not saying that any of this abuse should happen. I'm saying, though, that there's a reason why you can find yourself in these relationships. Because not the abuse, but the answers, the understandings that can be found in that counterpart can teach you how to let go of your own magnet and your own pull towards that behavior. Because usually the reason we repeat finding partnerships or friendships or all types of relationships that sort of mimic the type of abuse we experienced in childhood is that we might not ever find a solution or an understanding of our parents or whoever hurt us growing up, because we were so young when it happened, so it's hard to remember all of it maybe, or the power difference and the age difference is so vast, it can be hard to really understand them, and it can be so close that it's like how it's almost something you don't want to understand. How can a parent hurt their child in that way? Because if a parent can hurt their child in this way, then what kind of world are we living in? Like, how can I ever create good, meaningful relationships if that's my core? Like, if that's the people who should be there for me the most, care for me the most, and respect my boundaries the most, then how will I ever find that in other people? So in a way, it can seem like giving up when you choose that unconsciously in other people, in friendships, relationships. But actually, this is your hope, this is your courage and belief that things can get better, because subconsciously there might be a part of us that seeks out those relationships because we think if we can solve them in these relationships that we enter into when we're a little bit more grown and mature, when they're a little bit less close to us, at least in the beginning, we might end up getting as close or even closer, which can hurt us even further. I know that, but there's some part of it that might come from a place of, if I can repeat this relationship in a new relationship with a better outcome, or with more lessons from it, with a better understanding of how the hell does this behavior work, so I can avoid it, or I can heal whatever pain it gives me, or whatever might lead me to seek it out again, then for every time I do it, maybe it will become less interesting to me. Maybe I'll learn more, see the signs earlier, and also step away and into my power and away from the echoist behaviors of, I'm sorry, I'll try to help everyone. Just I'll be last. Just like that sort of behavior, which isn't. It's survival mode, and it's not the way we live our fullest and healthiest lives. For some people, you're not able to heal that in your lifetime. It will be very, very difficult, because usually it takes many lifetimes to go through that. Sometimes it gets worse throughout your life, because you end up having people come into your life that take advantage of the vulnerability caused by what happened in your childhood, and they'll abuse you and hurt you further, pushing you further into those survival mechanisms. So I'm not seeing there's a certain path that will just happen and you learn more and more and you heal more and more. That's not given at all. I'm saying that it will be another cycle, and before we become completely conscious of them and see them from far away so we can step away from them, as long as we still find ourselves stepping into them, at least we can then maybe try to find some sort of learnings from it, so we will minimize the pain in the future and maximize the lessons we learn from it, and build up our strength, so it will destroy us less. Yeah. I could go on and on about this, but just wanted to introduce you to that spectrum, to give you another counterpart to the narcissistic side of the spectrum. And maybe I'll do a part 2, maybe part 3, maybe more about this before I go on for too long. But I just really wanted to talk about this term. It was coined by a psychoanalyst. Let me find a name. First used, at least from my knowledge, by psychoanalyst Dean Davis in 2005, and then later on by Craig Malkin in his book Rethinking Narcissism. And it comes from the Greek myth of Narcissus, or Narcissus, that you probably heard about, the man who looks in the lake and sees his own reflection. But Echo actually comes from that myth, who is a forest nymph who then enters like a relationship with the narcissist, where she's only allowed to repeat whatever he says. So that's why echo means repeat, or repetition, is because you become an echo of the narcissist. If it happens early on, if you're in a very abusive relationship, and until you're ready to really step out of that and be aware of those behaviors. So that's Echoism. And I hope this is helpful for you in any way. Thank you so much. Thank you.